Can you do me a favor? Are those string of lights above you? Can you turn them on?
On?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hold.
A single light.
There you go.
Nope. You got four. Oh.
It's gonna make it easier for you to see yourself on this video. Perfect. That's good. All right, so take a deep breath. I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
How many people have been prescribed an antibiotic before in their life? How many people think that prescription was unnecessary? According to a 2014 report by the CDC called the Outpatient Antibiotic Prescriptions Report, there were 266 million courses of antibiotics prescribed that year. That comes out to about 835 prescriptions per 1,000 people. It's estimated that up to about 30% of that, which is about 80 million, were completely unnecessary. Their only purpose was to contribute to antibiotic resistance of bacteria. Based on my previous research of methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which you guys better know as MRSA, I'll inform you about antibiotic resistance, why it's happening, why it's dangerous, and why it can be stopped. An antibiotic is a drug prescribed by a medical professional to fight a bacterial infection. Bacteria are single-celled organisms that are found everywhere. Some, like those found in the gut, are very beneficial. They help keep your body in balance. They help keep the pH right, and things like that. However, there are many, many more that throw off that natural balance and can cause severe infection, such as MRSA and a similar strain that's also resistant to an antibiotic called vancomycin. That strain is known as MRSA. They're both staph infections, and they typically affect your skin. Antibiotics fight these sorts of infections in several ways. Some are highly specialized and only attack one kind of bacteria. Others, known as broad-spectrum antibiotics, will attack pretty much any bacteria, which include the beneficial kind. They attack bacteria in either one of two ways. They either kill it directly, or they make it very difficult for the bacteria to grow and multiply. In some cases, however, not all of the bacteria are killed or neutralized. And what this means is that some bacteria survive. And they then become resistant to that drug that was used. And this is called antibiotic resistance. This resistance trait is actually then passed on to other bacteria. It can be passed on to new bacteria that are created through division, because the DNA is obviously passed on to those bacteria. And it can be passed on to pre-existing bacteria through a process known as horizontal transfer, in which the bacterial cell gives its genetic information to another one. While this may not sound very serious, antibiotic resistance is a growing problem in the US and worldwide. It leads to the formation of superbugs, which are extremely problematic infections that cannot be treated through typical means. MRSA is actually one of those. The treatments for these are either very expensive, very rare, or in some cases they actually don't exist. A lot of them require intravenous administration, which can be a problem because then you have the open tract for infection. Others can actually be toxic. The one for MRSA can be toxic to you if it's administered for long enough. Your blood levels actually have to be monitored for drugs. According to a 2013 report, also by the CDC, called Antibiotic Resistance Threats in the U.S., there are an estimated 2 million illnesses and 23,000 deaths due to antibiotic resistance. And in the years since then, and in the coming years, those numbers will only continue to go up if nothing's done about it. While the threat of antibiotic resistance seems very large, there are some very simple ways to help. Preventing infection in the first place is a huge one. It will lessen the amount of prescriptions that are needed, and therefore it should lessen the amount of antibiotic-resistant bacteria that there are. Simply washing your hands properly can help immensely because, it kills all the bacteria. Honestly. Also, education about the threat of bacterial infection. It's not a very commonly known thing, unless you really get into advanced classes in college. And if more people knew about it, maybe we wouldn't have such a problem with antibiotic resistance. Also, proper food safety preparation. A lot of people will eat raw food without really thinking about it, and that puts bacteria into your system that shouldn't be there. which then require antibiotics to fight that. And on that same note, not using antibiotics unless completely necessary is the major point of fighting antibiotic resistance. When they're used inappropriately, it opens the pathway for more bacteria to survive and become resistant, such as in animals that are raised for slaughter. A lot of antibiotics are used in these animals, and while some of them are used to combat infection, a lot more are actually used to promote growth and to improve feed efficiency, both of which are very inappropriate uses and are extremely important in promoting the resistance of antibiotics and bacteria. The commitment to using antibiotics properly is known as antibiotic stewardship. It's being adopted by quite a lot of universities in the US. Finally, the development of new drugs. Well, even if antibiotics are always used properly, the mutation of bacterial DNA and the resulting horizontal transfer that occurs is always going to happen. However, it takes time to develop and test these new drugs, so the tide has to be slowed somehow. Antibiotic resistance is a very serious threat to the US and to the world. It threatens our ability to deal with simple infections such as just the common cold. And while the threat looms large and is very threatening, it can be dealt with, and it must be.